Hello, boys and girls, and it's David Vos time. Well, I woke up this morning. It's a beautiful day. It is blue skies. It is hotter than a pistol on the streets of Laredo, but it is beautiful. Well, you'll probably hear the chickens, and there's some little chickies that are making noises, and the dogs may start barking here and there, but that's life on a farm. And I'm so excited about the plants, and everything is growing well. I was able to dig down about 3 feet in the garden where I'm going to plant the tomatoes, and I didn't get any wisteria. And I looked up on the because where I live, I mean, I don't have no big nurseries around here where somebody might have a big wisteria plant, which is just as well, because those big plants, if you buy them that way, they're like $100 or $150 or something, and really didn't have the money for that. I mean, that would have just cut into my coffee money. So, but I wanted one so bad, and I was like, where could I get one, and could I order it? And I thought, see, I live out here in the middle of nowhere, and they won't even deliver FedEx or UPS or anything to me. So I went into town the other day, and while I was there, I was looking at Walmart and Lowe's. Or we don't have a Lowe's, it's a Home Depot. It's a small Home Depot. It doesn't have anything, but they got a big area with the plants and stuff. And I asked them if they had wisteria, and they said no. And well, I was at Walmart just getting a couple of things, which, I know I've said I didn't really want to shop there anymore, but I am only going in about once a month. And, because they have a garden center, I went in there. And while I was in there, I picked up a couple of things I needed, but in their garden area, of course, they don't have any wisteria either, but they have this rack or this cardboard kind of shelf where they have plants like grapevines and raspberries and shrubs and things wrapped in plastic, and they're not growing or blooming, but it's just a root pack, I guess, or something, with a little small stick coming out. It's kind of in dormancy. Once you plant it, get it watering, and it'll take off. And I'm like, to my surprise, I'm looking at this, and they have all these amazing, beautiful flowers, some of which I would have wanted, and I just didn't think I was going to be able to afford it because I was going to try and get wisteria. But they had these vines and things. One of them I wanted was clematis, and the other one was hydrangea. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but they're beautiful, and they're similar to wisteria, and they got beautiful colored blooms. I got the light blue colored, which I love that color. And the honeysuckle, which I've always loved, the honeysuckle vines. So we'll see if I can get those going. Maybe I still have a chance. Maybe if I go in somewhere or something, I might still be able to get a wisteria, but might have to wait till next year. But I'm excited about the hydrangea and the honeysuckle and the tomato plants, and digging down deep. I've got compost that I made from the chicken manure and hay, or I should say straw. And I learned there's a guy on the internet that is a young man. I think he lives in probably like Texas or something. But he does a video every so often, and he's kind of an expert in soil, gardening, and making compost. And this is where I think people get misinformed, because I've noticed there's a lot of videos on YouTube that are about composting or gardening or fertilizing or some little mixture you can make and put on your plants and it grows like crazy. And these are interesting little anecdotal things, but nobody hardly ever really teaches the the basic ideas, which are so simple, and they don't cloud all of the issues and get you off on some wild goose chase that you don't even understand what you're doing. It turns out that gardening is way simpler than they're making it out to be, and some of the things that they're just saying is not beneficial and true, and it's ridiculous. You don't need it. If you have a plant that's not doing well, or something's wrong, or you need it to grow faster, so you need to make some concoction and pour on it, or go to the Walmart and get some spray or any of that, then you know that you didn't do it right. Because if you have the right soil, which a lot of soil isn't good enough to grow your garden. It's too much clay. Doesn't have enough organic matter in the soil. So a lot of topsoil that people will start off with isn't good enough. So they just plant their garden in this topsoil that's not good enough. They're like, well, what do we do? I guess we'll put some fertilizer on it or something. You don't do that. It's very simple what to do, and people have heard of it, but they don't understand what they're doing. Compost is going to be a pile of organic matter that's going to be added to the topsoil wherever you live. If you live in some areas that has awesome topsoil, you really don't need to do anything. But not a lot of places have absolutely good, perfect topsoil. But once your plant is in the good soil, then as the roots go down, it's continuing to go down through good soil. And you don't need to add fertilizers, and you don't need to add all this garbage. Now, it could be over several years of planting that you'll deplete the soil of something, and you might have to add some compost. But basically, this is what we're doing. Whatever your topsoil, and see, with mine, it's all clay. I mean, there ain't nothing hardly at all organic in there. Maybe a couple of inches on the top might have some grass roots and a couple of seeds, but it's not much. It's just clay. And so in order to make that soil good, I've got to do some kind of compost. I can't just plant things in it and think, well, it's not very good. It doesn't have a lot of organic matter, so I'll just put the organic matter on top. It'll help it may take months and months and months or years to put just organic matter on top, and to imagine that the soil underneath is going to actually get better. I mean, it probably won't. And plants that, if you're just making a little garden, you just need to go down a foot, that's fine. You can kind of just go get some compost at the store, but that's not going to be good for your plants, because the stuff that they make it out of can sometimes be bad for your garden. And I'm going to show you how this guy showed me how. You only need 2 ingredients to make the most amazing compost to add to your topsoil. And you dig down like I'm doing. I went down almost 3 feet. I went down 3 feet in some areas, 2.5 feet in some of the other areas. It's varied. But I went down 3 feet where I'm going to plant these bushes, because the roots on these vines and trees and things like that will go down way deep. You need to go down really deep. So your plant may go fine for if you only go a foot. And then the roots get to the end of the foot, and they can't get through the soil anymore, and then it makes the tree dwarf. It won't go very high. It won't get big, because the roots don't get long and big. They're bunched up. So your tree, branch, vine, plant will not grow any taller than the area below the plant. So if you want a tomato plant to reach 10 feet, which it will, if it's got really good soil, you water it properly, it can go 10 feet tall, the plant. But you got to have good soil 10 feet down. And if you don't, you got to dig it down at least like 5 feet to get you a really good tomato plant growing really tall and big and thriving. But so you pull out all this soil and clay. Hopefully you have a better topsoil than that. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to make some organic material, what we call compost, that we can put in the trench and add the clay a little bit as well. You don't have to have just nothing but compost. It's just going to be added to the soil you already have. So you'll put maybe half that soil back in the trench, but mixed with this compost that we're going to make, and it's only going to take about 18 days. Now, the person I've learned this 2-ingredient compost pile from is a YouTube channel of a young man whose channel is the Permaculture Consultant. The Permaculture Consultant. You can look him up on YouTube, and I recommend that you do and you watch his videos because he knows quite a bit. He may look like he doesn't know much, just some young man in Texas, but he really does know and gets to the bottom of what the reality is about gardening and doesn't fill your head with a bunch of nonsense. And I like him because not only does he know how to make compost quickly and efficiently and well, and cuts through the nonsense, and he knows what soil is, but he knows what all of this information about gardening really is, and gives you a straightforward, simple things that you can understand and benefit from. And part of what he talks about, and others will talk about some of these things, but he puts it all together, seems to understand all of it. Like, for instance, if you have chickens, you don't ever have to feed them again. He's one of the persons that I've seen that mentions this. I've seen it from other places, but this is something I was interested in. Is how do you make the best chicken feed, get the healthiest chickens, and not have to feed them this Purina crap? Because that's probably not good for them. Whatever they're making in these bags that you're throwing all over the place, even if it, chicken scratches, corn meals, probably genetically modified to start with, and you think you've got free range chickens, but you're feeding them genetically modified garbage. What chickens like to do is scratch with their little paws and dig under it and get worms and bugs. They eat bugs and worms and organic material. They eat a lot of sand and dirt as well, because that goes into their craw and helps digest it, or actually, it's turned and sort of breaks it down. Instead of having teeth, they do it that way. So they need a lot of soil, and they're going to eat dirt a lot. But in the dirt, there's microorganisms that they're getting. What you do is you make this compost pile that we're going to talk about in the chicken pen. And they're going to scratch and move it around, and you're going to go in every day and rake it back up into a pile. And they'll come back out and rake it down again. But you won't, you might have to feed them a little bit to start with, but once that compost pile, you got a big compost pile in the middle of the pen, they'll go out there every day and sit up on the little hill, who's king of the hill, and they'll be scratching and digging and getting worms and bugs and organic matter. And they don't need any other food. If you make a big enough pile, you're not going to put a little 2-foot pile out there. It's going to be maybe a big 6-8 foot pile of compost, and it'll get bigger and bigger, but it'll keep shrinking and composting. And we're going to show you what the 2 ingredients is. This breaks it down so that, you can add other things, but the main thing, just keeping in mind, you can throw your organic material, your waste, your potato clips and apple peels and coffee grounds or whatever you want in there. But that's going to account for a small portion. You need a big bunch of compost to add to your topsoil if you're going to have a lot of gardening. If you don't have anything else to do with it, just sprinkle this compost all over once you've made it. It's only going to take 18 days, and you can just sprinkle it all over your yard. It'll probably, a big pile of this compost, maybe a couple of big piles, you can spread it all over, maybe a whole acre, and get the whole acre just thriving, growing and thriving, and don't worry about the weeds. Some of those are beautiful too, but throw and start replacing your weeds with your plants that you like that are perennial, that come back every year. What's this thing where everybody's got to plant things in their garden that they got to replant every year, and this is a lot of work. And what you're planting is food that doesn't come back, because it's not actually food. It's hybrid things. See, this is part of the great deception, living in this deceptive world, this crazy fake world we live in, where we're living in these little cages and we think this is life. Life is out there in the natural world, but we're oh, I might freeze in the forest. It's ew, there's nothing to eat and we'll all die. No, I've even heard people say, "Oh, I wouldn't drink out of a stream." Why, it's not purified water like we buy at the store. It's not distilled. It's just running all over the ground. It's dirty. Oh man, you see how ignorant we are? Water is purified and picks up the stuff you need that you're not getting with the water at the store. It's called minerals. And yes, you drink right out of the stream that's running on the ground. I know you don't want to maybe drink from a stream that is near a cattle ranch or somebody's sewer or a factory in the city, but in nature, in the mountains, there's nothing like that around. And even if there's some elk that poop here and there, that's nature. There's nothing wrong with that. What happens is that the water runs down the creek, and every so many 100 feet, it purifies itself. So even if a deer pissed in the water or pooped in the water upstream 100 yards, I mean, it's purified by the time it gets to you. But if they're pooping in the water, it's going to run down the stream. It's not going to stay there. It'll be gone in 3 seconds and purified in another 5 minutes. It's completely pure. The water, nature itself purifies all of this. It's organic material. It's not poison. But what poison is the stuff that you're putting in the water that's supposedly making you clean water, but it's not giving you clean water because it's taking out all the minerals and nutrients. You need wild and natural, I should say, water coming from a stream or a well. If you don't have that kind of water, that's another big problem. Buying, and I'll tell you another day what I'm dealing with right now because I don't have a stream on my property. I have to go to this big well down the road, and the government decided that there's too much of something or other naturally occurring in the ground, and they wanted to add some more chemicals to fix it. So now my water looks blue, so I'm not even able to drink it unless I run it through a Brita filter. But that's a whole nother issue that I'll tell you about. I think they're just doing it to these poor natives and unsuspecting people in the cities, wherever people live. They don't know that the water that they're being told is now treated and therefore you can drink it is now poison. I mean, because, the pipes were rusty, so we had to add a bunch of arsenic and chemicals and chlorine that'll kill you, right? Well, yeah. Anyway, back to what we're saying here. You have to understand that Monsanto started making seeds that don't just come back on their own the next year, or the plants don't produce seeds. Now, why do they do this? Well, that means that every year you plant, you got to go to them to get the seeds. And it's a hybrid and genetically modified food that'll kill you. So stop going to the store and getting all these hybrid, genetically modified plants that don't come back every year. They don't have seeds. But find foods that come back every year, perennials, flowers and food. Onions come back every year. Sorrel. And a lot of these things like beets and certain cabbages and things, they'll come back every year. This is something that I learned last year in the garden. There were some beets growing, and the tops were so beautiful. There's this huge leafy green, and it had like red stripes. I thought it was rhubarb, but I looked it up and they said, yeah, you can eat the green on the top of the beet like a salad. And you know what? It's better than lettuce. It's probably more nutrient. Of course, beets are very good for you. But they've been telling us to cut the root up, to dig the root up and eat the darn root, which, a lot of people don't even like beets. They're kind of, I guess they're all right. But we were made to eat the leaf and the fruit because they'll go to seed, which means that's a fruit there. So I think it's better, and I think it tastes better to eat the top of the plant. And a lot of these kinds of plants will grow back every year if you don't keep thinking, oh, I've got to dig this plant up. I mean, even potatoes can grow back. Of course, you don't want to eat the potato leaves because, or they claim, I don't know, I haven't personally eaten them, but uh, the scientists say, or the people in charge, of this world, they say you don't want to eat potato leaves because they have solanine, and they claim it's, giving upset tummy or it's not good for you. But you can eat sweet potato leaves, and these things are roots. They're made to stay in the ground. The root stays in the ground. You eat the top part, if you understand what I'm saying. It's just everything's backwards and upside down in this world. A lot of these other plants, you just eat the top part. The onions are amazing if you eat the top part. Because if you eat the bulb of an onion, it's very, very hot, which people like, and once you cook them, it's not so hot. But it's hard to eat a raw onion, but you can eat the tops raw and just cut them up and put them in your salad. It's delicious. Kind of like, I guess the beet tops are a little bit like chard or something, but they're very, very healthy for you. But the amazing thing is that you can just plant things once and enjoy the bounty for years. Things that you plant every year and it comes back up the next year is more of a natural variety of plant that you should eat, be more apt to eat. A lot of people, onion seed are good. They're the type of thing that they had for thousands of years. People always took their leeks and onions with them. So why is it that people plant onions every year? You don't have to plant them. You plant the onions, and then what people do is they go out and they dig up the onion and they eat the bulb. Well, lots of plants have bulbs. Lilies, they're related to lilies. But you don't dig them up every year. You let them regrow from the bulb. It's underground. It's protected during the winter. You just eat the onion on top. The chive, I guess, it's not really a chive, but it's not a chive onion, but it's like the chives that grow the leaf, what the stalk that grows up from the onion bulb. And you cut it and it regrows all year long. You cut it off, put it in your pot, your pan, you cook it, you eat it raw, whatever, your salad, and you go back out there in a week and it's all grown up again. And then when winter comes, it just sits there, and next spring it all grows up by itself again. This is why I want these vines and flowers that I've looked into, that like wisteria and hydrangea, I don't know how to pronounce that, clematis, the honeysuckle. They're kind of invasive. They'll grow and keep growing, but if you don't want them to grow any further, you just prune them back. But if you're living in a desert or a place where, out in the middle of nowhere and you don't got any flowers, let them grow. My goodness, what's the big problem? We like beautiful plants with flowers. Roses grow back every day. Lilacs grow back, every year. Peonies, they're so beautiful. Almost more beautiful than the roses. Even the hydrangea, whatever it's called, is oh my goodness, like blue roses covering your whole, fence. They make them white. They make them dark blue and light blue and purple and pink, and they're just like big carnations or something. It's amazing how beautiful all this is. And all you got to do is go down, and Walmart's got these, and I'll tell you about that. You can buy these plants like honeysuckle and hydrangea, and they even have wisteria. It's just that they were out when I finally got there 3 days ago when I went to Walmart or wherever it was. I noticed that there were some wisteria, but I guess so popular, everybody took that. And what I was left with was some other plants I hadn't thought about that I got that I'm happy, especially the hydrangea, which is also something that'll pretty much grow in any climate, even in clay. But if you want to grow big and fast, you got to have this good soil that we're going to tell you about. And not only is it something you should be thinking about for your garden, but as we said, we're not really going to have a traditional garden. You see, that's stupid. Why have this big garden when you got to go out there and work your tail end off every year? That really just grows hybrid foods that are starchy and are not as good for you, like potatoes. Plant them every year. I never did really understand that because here you are planting 5 potatoes and getting 20 back. Like it's not that efficient. That's not 30-fold, 60-fold, or 100-fold. So I don't like that. But there are lots of things that just grow back every year. In fact, tomatoes, if you keep them warm enough, they don't get frozen in freezing climates. And there's a way around that. But if you have freezing climates, I'll tell you what to do. But normally, if you live in an area where it doesn't really freeze too much, you can grow the tomatoes and they will stay growing and getting bigger and bigger, almost like a big bush or a tree. They'll live like 10 years. You don't have to redo them every year. They'll just keep growing. But most people, I guess, in the United States are in areas where it could freeze in the winter, and then it kills them. But what you do is you get a really big pot that you can move around with a dolly, and you plant them in that. And then when winter starts to get close, before freeze happens, you wheel them in to the greenhouse. But because I love tomatoes. I don't care if they're good for you or not, man. Those, they're fine. They're good for you. I know that doctor on the YouTube says, oh, they've got lectins or something in them. They're not good for you. It's kind of like saying acorns aren't good for you because there's all the tannins. Yeah, you process food. You cook them. Tomatoes make tomato sauce. But you know what? They taste good raw, too. I love them. Oh, love them. Love tomatoes. And they're beautiful. I love these big old red fruits, right? There's nothing like tomatoes. You get, if you got a big tomato plant growing, it's got 30 tomatoes hanging all over it at any one time. You go out there and you pick one. It's a big old tomato in your hand and you eat that like an apple. It's delicious. So don't let them fool you. There ain't enough lectins in that tomato to make your diet bad or anything like that. Just keep eating the tomatoes no matter what that old gray-haired idiot on YouTube tells you. Don't eat beans. There's lectins. He's an idiot, right? And I think he's like 60, but he looks like 90. And we're going to listen to this guy about how we should eat. Not only that, he's got something to sell you. He's just trying to sell you stuff. It's propaganda. I just had a comment from the video I did yesterday where somebody's spewing out this whole long, like several paragraphs of all this propaganda. How you're wrong, Dave. We should eat all the sugar we can. Why, if you eat lots of sugar, your insulin just goes down. It's been proven. Huh? Oh, yeah, if you've got high insulin, that's wonderful. That's good for you, Dave. You're just wrong. Oh, boy. People, then why are there, in nature, why is it that all the plants don't have a lot of sugar? Duh. What is wrong with people, man? The propaganda and the lies going around, friends. Oh, buddy. What we're talking about here isn't just making compost for a garden that you're going to have to slave over every year. We're going to make a big pile, several piles. It's so easy. You can make huge piles, and many of them, with just a very minimal, easy work. And we're going to show you how to do it, just with 2 ingredients that you have already on your property. Just pile it up. Let the chickens, you don't have to buy chicken food, and they'll help you, and they'll poop in it as well as they're doing that. And then you go out when it's all finished, the compost, and put it in a wheelbarrow, and there you go. Because the poop is nitrogen, and you need a combination of stuff that's got carbon and nitrogen. And you put it together, and bam, in 18 days, you're going to have this big pile of stuff that you're going to just, first of all, when you plant these things, like the bushes, you'll dig down and put it in there. But you mix it with the topsoil you already have. It just improves the soil. But then you can just make piles of it and spread it all over your property. You got an acre? Fine. Spread it all over. You can treat a lot of soil with this compost that we're going to make. And everything will just be growing green everywhere. You'll just have a garden like bush gardens had never seen before in their life. Right? And yeah, if you've got some water, make a little fountain, get some ducks, have an aviary. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start. I don't know if I'll be able to do it soon, but pretty soon I'm gonna, because I've got to get the the chicken pen turned into a big aviary for birds. That's going to be nice and cool, and make a little pond in there. And it might sound like it would be a lot of work, but what we're actually going to do is show you how to do all of this without having to work so hard, and having results 100 times better than any of these people are going to tell you on YouTube, because they don't know, they don't understand this. So let's get into this. This is what this permaculture consultant said to do with 2 ingredients, and you should go watch his videos as well. He is brilliant, and he's the only one talking about a lot of things that I've been learning myself. Things that it's just crazy, because you go on the YouTube and you see somebody telling you how to do something. They have very limited knowledge. They're just trying to make a video. And some of the things that they're saying, it's just not adequate. They're the knowledge that they have. They're not telling you the correct thing. I mean, a lot of people just put soil they buy at Walmart on their plants. And I did that last year, and it literally killed the tomato plants. And I don't think it was very good for any of the plants I put it on. The problem is that the stuff you buy at the store is very poor quality and may be toxic to some plants. And they make it sound like if you want to make your own soil, it's going to be a difficult process. You got to mulch it. You see a lot of these amazing gardeners on YouTube talking about how to make soil and mulching, and they make it such a large process. They got to do this and build this thing and throw some of the eggshells and throw your coffee grounds, and over the years you just keep throwing stuff, and maybe you can get some manure and put it in there and stir it around, and maybe a little grass clippings and stir that in, and wait a couple of months and stir some more in and pour some of this and pour some of that. And it's literally ridiculous, because think about it. Does nature make soil that way? I mean, yeah, you might have a few eggshells drop on the soil, and you might, of course, you might drop fruit that would rot into the ground. All this is a process, but we don't need to go through all that. There is only really 2 ingredients that you need for your soil, and that is the ingredient that has your nitrogen and the ingredient that has your carbon. And there's 2 ways you can get that carbon if you don't have money to go buy straw and hay and stuff. And if you look at YouTube channels, they're like, oh my goodness, you can't get straw or hay. It's got chemicals they spray on it and it'll kill everything. Well, you don't put it directly from the bale onto your garden. What you do is you either make compost with it, which I can show you how you could do it within like about 18, 21 days or something. Really, it doesn't take very long. You don't need to do it months and months. And all you got to do is get you a pile composting. And in the summer, or even the spring, it's going to get hot inside that bale. And within a couple of days of being hot and mulching, all the bacteria and the chemicals and the problems you may have had, if there were any in that hay, is going to be gone. It's going to start decomposing. So just get you some hay or some straw, or if you don't have the money for that, because them hay bales are getting pretty expensive now. They're going about $10, $15 a bale. And, you might want a bunch of it, because you can scatter it all over your yard, your garden, everything like that, and it'll just really make good mulch on its own. It'll mix with the live grass that you might have already in the weeds, which is your nitrogen. Anything living, like grass clippings or poop, chicken poop, cow manure, these are your nitrogen. So the straw mixed with poop, or the straw mixed with the grass clippings, or the straw mixed with green, maybe your organic material from your home that spoils, and you throw that in there too. But if you don't have the money for that straw bale, or you just don't want to purchase straw, just go down to the end of the road where you live, and there's big trees, or in the backyard or something, and you see all these leaves that have fallen during the winter. They're down in the gulch. They're all matted and they've been wet and they've sat there and they're already mulching. But they're not living and they're not green. So that's considered your carbon, just like if you were to go get straw. So you just go get you a wheelbarrow or whatever, or a pitchfork, and start getting all these old leaves from previous winter laying there in spring rotting. Put that in your mulch. So you've got a layer of the leaves, a layer of the grass clippings, a layer of leaves, a layer of grass clippings, or layer of straw, layer of grass clippings, layer of straw, layer of grass. So you sit this big pile out there in the hot sun. 4 days later, you go out there and you get your pitchfork and you take the outside of the pile all the way around the outside, like the whole, like about a foot off the top, and you pull it off and pull it to the side, right next to the pile. And then you get the center of the pile and you put it on top. And then you let that sit for 3 or 4 days. And you just keep doing this. It's called flipping. And you do that for 18 days and you've got good soil, you know, to mix with your actual soil in your garden. You don't actually, have to throw away. Even if you've got clay, you just mix that with it. And that's going to be 10 times better than anything you can buy at Walmart, Home Depot, mulch, or topsoil, or whatever that they're selling that might actually be damaging. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. I've been using chicken manure. I went out. I noticed there was cows along the road here as I was going, and the elk are along the road all over the place. As you're going to town, you see elk all along the road just grazing. So I hopped out of my truck with the shovel and started picking up some of this elk manure. And the cows that got out the other day left a few patties, and I put all that in the back of my truck, and I'm mixing that in, and I'm mixing straw because I had the straw from last year, so that's been sitting there all winter. It's perfectly amazing because it's already beginning to decompose. I'm mixing that in with all the green grass and clippings and things that I've got around here, and we're making ourselves a really tasty soup for the plants. So I'm really excited about that. But I'm not. I didn't really intend on talking about that today. I maybe want to do a whole video on that. Although it's not like I'm an expert on gardening already. But because I haven't been doing this very long. But I'm also a very good researcher, and I tend to discredit a lot of people if they don't really know what they're talking about. And I'll latch onto something, and then I'll confirm it, and it makes sense, and then boom, I know a better way, and it just makes sense. So, take that advice or leave it however you feel in your heart that makes sense to you. But I really think that's good advice not to buy the soil at Walmart. If you're going to spend the time to garden, just get you a bale of hay. And all these people they're putting their gardens in hay or straw. They're making a straw garden. They just plant the whatever they buy, they plant it right in a bale of hay or straw. Well, I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, it does help or improve, probably because their soil's no good, and maybe the hay bale. Because whenever you buy a plant, sometimes it has a little bit of dirt around it, comes from the store. So it has that little bit of dirt. But then they make a hole in the hay bale and stick that in there. Now, the hay bale is going to begin to mulch, and you've added the dirt around the plant to it, and you might add some, and they usually recommend adding certain things to the top of the bale, but this is still not logical because that's not a complete soil just using straw. So I even watched a couple of videos where they were saying, okay, they compared it with the garden that they didn't do in the straw, and a lot of them were saying it really didn't do that much to boost their productivity or anything. But I think a lot of people just do it because you don't have to make a raised garden bed. That's a lot of work, making boxes. This is up off the ground. You get off from, if you got clay ground or whatever, you can just put it on top and plant it right there. Like, you don't have to make boxes or containers to put your stuff. It's just more like a big pot that they're using. They're using the straw as a big pot to plant, make a hole and put the dirt there inside it, and it begins to mix and make mulch throughout the year. But it can be a good thing if you're strapped for time and just want to experiment. But it's just not a complete way for your plants to get nutrients. The plants can use the straw throughout the year as it's growing because that hay is beginning to rot and mulch. But you still need your nitrogen, your green, and it's hard then to take your grass clippings while you're already got your bale and it's got something planted in it, and it's your garden. You can't really add any nutrients other than pouring something on it. And that's not the way to garden, pouring concoctions on it, right? Fertilizers. You don't need fertilizers. You just need the right soil, which is something. You take a pile of hay and you take a pile of grass clippings and you stir it up, and then put that down in the bottom of the trench that you dig. And then on top, you can put the regular soil, and that will mix over the year of growing, and provide, by the end of the year, it's still providing mulch. It's still releasing all these bacterial things and the proper nitrogen carbon ratio that you need. And you don't need to make a lot of this compost. I mean, you can make a lot of it, and I'm going to do that and spread it everywhere. But if you're just making a little garden, you don't need a lot of this because you're going to mix it in with the existing soil. And you really just need maybe 6 inches on top of really good soil that's already ready to go. Beneath that, you can have some that's kind of mulching. And by the time the roots get down to that point, then it's going to be great soil. But the good, perfect soil needs to be at the top, maybe 6 inches to a foot of really good soil. And under that, you can just put piles of hay and throw some of the existing dirt and mix it with the hay and throw some grass clippings and then put your good soil on top. Because beneath the 6 inches of that soil that you mulched, right, maybe only takes 18 days. Got to start in the early spring mulching to get that soil. But even if you just have a little of it, you can only put like 6-inch layer. Well, it doesn't matter. Don't worry. You take your straw or your leaves and your green clippings and the nitrogen or the poop, and mix it. And it doesn't have to even be mulched. You don't have to wait 18 days. Just put it right like that in the ground in your trench and put the good soil on top. And as the roots grow, it may take a month or so for those roots to get down in there. And by the time they get in there, that soil during the summer has already reached temperatures. It's already sufficiently mulched and will continue to mulch throughout the year. You don't have to do it on the top and then add it first. You can just put it on the bottom of your trench and just add enough good soil on the first 6 inches. That's all you need. And so fertilizer is not really something you need to do. If you've got good soil, you really don't need fertilizer. If you dig a trench 3 feet deep like I'm doing, and the first layer is just a bunch of straight straw, that's going to be mulching, and it's going to be seeping into the soil beneath that 3-foot trench, so that after a year or so, your soil is going to be 4 or 5 feet now because it's already conditioned the soil beneath it. So throw the straw, just straight straw or decomposing leaves, at the bottom of your trench, 6 inches of that. And then on top of that, add your green clippings. And that will mulch throughout the year by itself. That's all you got to do. Just throw it in the trench. It's only the 6 inches or foot or so at the top that you need some pretty good soil, maybe 6 inches. And you can make that in 18 days in a compost pile with your greens and your straw. But anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to tell you today. But just think about what I'm saying, because I don't think that a lot of people, they understand enough about gardening and permaculture and composting and these principles to realize that gardening doesn't have to be that hard. I think what a lot of people do is they think, well, I need to plant and I want flowers. So they'll go and they'll make a little garden or flower bed in their front yard, and they'll plant a few flowers and they'll come up and they look nice. But that's just one little row of flowers. And they're like, oh man, I want more. I want, something lush and roses, and it takes years to grow the roses and get them all the way you want and stuff. But really, instead of just going and buying a big pot and putting it in the ground and putting some rocks around it and thinking, oh, that must be all right. Oh, I guess I'll go get some Monsanto chemicals and pour all over it. We've got to start thinking differently. Just go buy a bale of hay or rake up some leaves, put them in a pile. And a lot of you live in somewhere where you've got a yard and you mow the yard. Take those grass clippings every time you mow the yard, which you're probably going to end up with a big pile of grass clippings, and pile them up. And then some of you live where you've got trees and you got big piles of leaves every year. You put them in plastic bags and haul them away or burn them. No. Take the leaves, take the grass clippings, put them side by side, two big piles. Then get a pitchfork. $25 down there at the Home Depot. Get your pitchfork and get a big old pitchfork full of the straw and lay it down somewhere in your backyard or wherever and spread it out. And then get you a big old pile of green grass clippings and lay that on top of that. Another layer. And then get you a pitchfork full of straw, make a third layer. And then get a pitchfork full of green grass clippings and make another layer. And just keep doing this till your pile's all mixed up. In the summer, you might take a hose and lightly spray it down and just kind of keep it moist. But not drenched. You don't want to pour water all over it. Just kind of keep it moist so it doesn't dry out on top, because that's where it's going to dry out, from the top. Because if it's hot, it'll dry out the top layers. You'll just sprinkle the top layers and that'll seep down in and it'll be moist. And within 18 days, you can go out there and flip it and get it done in 18 days. Keep flipping and mixing it. Top layer on the bottom layer on the top. Wait 4 days. Do it again. Or you can just leave it out there. If you don't care about the time restraints. You start cutting grass in the early spring, and by that time, the leaves have already fallen from last year. Rake them up. A lot of places where you guys might be living, you could start pretty early, maybe even the winter. Some people are mowing their yard. And just start putting it all out there. And every time putting it in one spot, and it just keeps mulching and mulching and mulching. You say, then you're going to have all this huge pile like a mountain. And then what are you going to do with it? Well, then you're going to take it, once it's all done, with that pitchfork and a wheelbarrow. Fill up the wheelbarrow and go all around your property. Some of you live in the country. You've got maybe you live in the desert. Just start dumping it 6 inches deep everywhere, all over your acre. You have 5 acres, within a few, sure wouldn't take long, right? If you could get somebody in town that mows their yard and you say, I'll come pick it up for free. And they got leaves they're raking up. I'll go pick it up for free. Fill the whole back of your truck full of it. Take it out to the desert. Mulch it. Wouldn't take very long. And then start spreading it all. Start around the area where you live, your cabin, your trailer, wherever you're at. And start spreading it. Pretty soon you got the whole acre. Then you got 2 acres. And that is going to fix your clay and sandy soil, you're going to have soil as good as they got down there in Texas or Georgia. And you'll be able to go out there and start putting perennial plants that will come back every year. Every time you do that, put a peonia in. Oh man, they're beautiful, right? Try some of these hydrangeas. They're so beautiful. Get you some wisteria. Now, mind you, if you live in a place, maybe if you're going to put your wisteria in front of your house or something, it's going to grow up the house. And if you've got wood siding or whatever, it's going to cling to it. And, I think you need to have a trellis, but it's going to end up possibly damaging. It's very heavy. So I would say put it somewhere over a very sturdy fence or something that's very sturdy. Make a trellis, very sturdy one. And if you don't want it going all over your yard in 5 years, then just go out and prune it. Prune the branches that are trying to go somewhere you don't want them to go. Very simple, very easy. Just clip and take that branch that you clipped and throw it away. And you can keep that wisteria in the area that you want. But, for those that, like, you might live in the desert and you might want beautiful flowers hanging everywhere and filling up the desert. Get your soil ready. Get the wisteria, the hydrangea, the clematis, the honeysuckle, the roses, the lilacs, the peonias, hibiscus, or whatever. There's all kinds of different plants. Flowering, beautiful vines, plant grapes, raspberries, and wow. I mean, it's such a small amount of work, right? In 1 year, one spring, you've got your mulch. You can scatter it all over. You can start adding your perennial plants like beets, onions, sorrel, and they'll just keep coming back every year. Sweet potatoes, and you can plant big sunflowers. Then you can get the seeds and eat some of them and plant the rest. They're beautiful. Oh, I love sunflowers. That's I think it's my favorite flower, sunflower. And I think it's because I used to live in an area, well, even here where I'm at in New Mexico, this whole area, it's dry and it's clay soil. And anywhere you see a little gulch ring, you'll see like big sunflowers. They're wild. They grew up. And they just brighten your day. It's just big old smiley sunflowers staring at you. They get maybe 6, 7, 8, 10 feet tall if you water them enough. And there was a place down there where I was living some years ago where a very dry climate, there was sunflowers growing on both sides of the road. Just a little, like, 1-lane road. They got so big one summer because we had a lot of rain that they kind of started tilting and leaning over. And they leaned over towards each other. And it was like a big arch. And we just drove under the sunflowers. It was the most beautiful thing you'd ever seen. But you can do that in your road. You can make some heavy trellises along your driveway. Like 6 to 8 feet above the driveway. And grow your wisteria. And all this beautiful blue, purple, whatever color you buy will grow over that trellis and hang down. And you can drive under it. It's going to be so beautiful. So many amazing things we can do, friends. And make our garden so beautiful. We don't have to, we just do the work once and it comes back. And, theoretically, it will be more beautiful than these millionaires that pay these guys to go out and do their gardening for them. And in fact, these guys really don't know the stuff that we're talking about. And they're just bringing plants that they bought from some greenhouse and planting them there. And they're very expensive. And they need to be upkept by a gardener. And who's got time for that or the money? But what I'm talking about is making your soil and everything and preparing it very simply so that it all comes back by itself and takes care of itself. You'll have a Beautiful garden, my friends. Anyway, I think I'll just leave it there. Not quite an hour, but we're getting almost down to an hour, and I got so many things to do. I'm going to leave it there, friends. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and I hope this information appealed to you and helps you, think about some new ideas. And watch that guy's channel I was telling you about, that Permaculture Consultant. He's on YouTube, and I like watching him because he's got so many great, neat, amazing ideas that are really good, not just somebody's crackpot theories, right? Anyway, we'll see you guys tomorrow. The Lord will bless you now. Have a good one.